Welcome to Planet Pathlings. I'm your Tuesday host, Reagan from Pagan Naturalists. So this week we are looking at the environmental impact of witchcraft. And my focus specifically is air and water pollution. And I was really surprised when I started doing my research for this that there aren't really any solid correlations between any religious practices and like their environmental impact, pollution or whatever. There's like no research for that really. I mean, there's a tiny bit of, there's a couple of like peer-reviewed articles regarding this, but there's no real statistical data, and there's a lot of big holes in research in general because none of these topics have been covered, not thoroughly and not properly. So I don't really have many numbers to share with you. I do have links in the description below to what I was able to find, so hopefully that will help you out. But some of these things are kind of common sense, like burning incense and candles indoors obviously is going to cause air pollution, and I mean that's just something that you can't avoid when you're burning something. It's putting off chemicals into the air, and obviously we know from the research done with secondhand cigarette smoke that there's a lot of carcinogens and things involved in burning things. Well, the cleaner it burns, obviously the less impact it has, but the scented candles and the incense definitely aren't burning very clean. So the only thing that I really want to say about that personally is like I am very mindful of my pets and my children when it comes to burning things indoors because of the fact that it does have a direct impact. And there's plenty of ways to practice and focus without having to burn things, but I do understand how hard that is because we consider that like the old ways, and a lot of faiths are very big into burning incense and burning candles. So it's such an ingrained practice that it's very hard and weird to get away from it. And then you have to look at like getting away from it. How do you? Because if you're using like battery operated things instead, well, those eventually end up in landfills. And if you're not using, and even if you use rechargeable batteries, they eventually end up in a landfill, so it's trying to reduce your impact on the environment, just being mindful and at least trying to make up for it in other areas as much as you possibly can, I think is the best way to handle it, because you would basically have to stop living, and even in death we have an impact on the environment. So there's not a whole lot you can do about the fact that everything that we do, especially in modern society, is going to have some kind of impact. It's just being mindful and taking the steps that you possibly can to not have as much of an impact. And I was really fascinated when it came to water pollution. I mean, there's a lot of different things, like when people cast things out into the water for various spells or whatever that's having an effect. A lot of chemicals and things can contaminate groundwater supplies if they are introduced into the water system. Another thing that really surprised me that I never really gave much thought about when looking into this topic, which isn't necessarily specifically a pagan thing, is alien vegetation or alien anything, not just plants. Just like I discovered that there's a problem here with out at our lake with mussels. They're actually clogging up the lake pretty bad. They have quite an infestation of mussels, which is going to affect the flow of our water supply to Las Vegas, which is fascinating to me because I never would have given that a thought. So we have to be mindful when introducing different plant life and animal life into new environments. And once again, there's a link in the descriptions below because there's quite a bit of that. There's a lot of big impacts in areas of the world based on species being introduced that weren't native to there. So that is definitely a big concern. And I think a lot of it, the only real, like as far as like witchy way that would be, that I think of is like what you're planting in your garden. and the possibility of it, spreading, the blowing off into other people's yards or out into the environment, into nature, and growing crazy things like that. There's a few other aspects of that can be looked at, but everything that we do affects everything, and it's just, there comes a point you can't be completely just cut off and not consume anything, not use anything, not anything. But you can also be mindful of the products that you do purchase, how you use them, where you get them from, and what you can do to try to reduce just your carbon footprint. Being part of an earth-based religion, it's so hard because a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the things that I do require me to do things that do have a negative impact on the environment. And it's frustrating because, and a lot of steps I have taken. Just like I love traditional film, like wet darkroom film, but there's a lot of environmental impact with that, with the chemicals that are used to process that film. And, so I've pretty much stuck to digital as much as I possibly can so that I'm not having that impact. We also have to consider that even if we're using electricity, like if we're using warmers or, as Blue uses her electric cauldron, which is absolutely amazing, by the way, I love that. That concept is really cute. But we're still using energy. And in some parts of the country, we do have energy crisis, and it all depends on the type of power plants that our energy is being run off of, and whether or not, that's something that's environmentally friendly. So, and then those items are made from materials that might not be exactly eco-friendly or recycled or whatever. So then you've got, you could go on and on and on. I could go on and on and on. I could sit here and talk about the impacts forever. It's mind-blowing. It's such a huge topic. There's so much information just with the research that has been done, and then just a common sense look at where did this come from and where is it going. And for me, like, the main thing that sticks out to me is probably the burning things because of my history of being asthmatic, and I really look at that. Even like when you're out somewhere and you have a campfire, like, what are you burning in that campfire? And it's really funny to me to watch people that proclaim themselves to be highly spiritual and highly in tune with the earth and the world around them, putting processed woods into a campfire and burning that and releasing all of those noxious gases into the environment. There's some things that we do that I think it's just, lack of thought and carelessness, because, just for the sake of, path of least resistance and just doing what's easy and not taking a serious look. So hopefully you'll take a look at the links and do some research on your own in this topic, and check out the video. Spin put an amazing video together yesterday, and that's here on the Planet Pathlings channel, and then the rest of us will be there will be 2 more videos this week, and then of course our weekly wrap-up. And I think this is definitely a topic that we're going to have to come back and revisit further with more depth, because we were only given a week to do the research on this. It came up kind of quickly that we cover this topic, because I really want to dig deeper and find more specific information and put together something that's got a lot more real numbers and reality to it than just me sitting here telling you you're having an impact on the environment. So hopefully, we can all just work on trying to do what we can to take care of our dear Mother Earth, because, even though science fiction has us, moving to Mars next week, when it comes down to it, this is our planet, this is our home, and this is where we need to really focus on taking care of things. So hopefully, it'll at least give you an opportunity to be a little bit more mindful of what you do and what kind of impact you have on the environment with what you do. So I will talk to you next week, and actually I'll be on Friday on our weekly wrap-up, which is at 5 p.m. Pacific time, right here on this channel. And I hope you have a wonderful everything, brightest blessings, and I will talk to you later.